segment, we're going to look at lists and maps in Kotlin. They are distinct, and we're going to look at them separately and look at how to make use of them, and possibly a simple use case of how a list is applied and how we can make use of maps in a real world scenario. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be doing now. So as usual, hold on, let me quickly delete. This was my previous code. Let me quickly delete this. Now to delete a module, right click on it and then go to the delete option here. So let me delete this and let me create a new. So as usual, you click on this folder and then go to new Kotlin class of file, select file, and then let's call this list and maps.kt. Okay, so this is our Kotlin file. So the very first thing we want to do, as we have always done, is to create a main function where we put all our code. So now to create a list, there are two types of lists. There's a mutable list and an immutable list, right? So as the name implies, a mutable list is one that can be edited, adjusted, or reviewed, or modified. But an immutable list cannot be modified, cannot be changed, cannot be reviewed or edited. So let's just look at how that works. So the very first thing is we want to create a variable, and the variable can be val or var. Let's use val. Let's use var, right? So we want to create an immutable list. So fruits. Let's call this. Okay, let's just call this names, and we use equal to. Then this is the keyword we use. So unlike other languages where you just have to enter the curved or sorry, what's this called? Square brackets rather. You just have to use the square brackets. But in this case, we are using a keyword called list of. Right. So this is an immutable list. So we can now include the names here. So we can say Eto, which is my surname. We have David, which is my name. And we have let's just say Flamingo. No, let's use a real name. Let's say Samuel, and then let's just add Dennis. Okay, so this is an immutable list, so we can go ahead and print this list. Print line. So if you can recall from the previous session we've had, that the difference between print line and the ordinary print statement is that print line will print it in a new line, we display it in a new line. Why this is going to add all of your print statement on the same line and makes it kind of mm, um, unprofessional to do. So we just have to stick with this. So we can go ahead and print these names and then we can run it. So like I said, there are several ways to either we right click on this and click on run, or we go ahead and click on this button, or we click on this button. So there are just several ways to run it. So let's just quickly use this option. I'll just give it a minute to load. So while we are waiting for it, so now an immutable list, you cannot make changes to it. For example, you can't say list, sorry, what's the name of names, right? Dots. You can, so there are several, if you can recall from when we explained dot operator, that a dot operator is used to get all of the different methods, right? So if you look at all of these methods, there's really no add or remove, right? But when we look at the mutable list, you'll be able to see that with the mutable list, you can have, once you press this, once you enter this dot or this full stop or dot rather, you're going to see the add or the remove option. They're showing you that it is mutable. But for here, for this rather, we can only iterate, we can only check if it's empty, as in with, by making use of this is empty statement. We can check if it's equal to another list. We can check if it contains a particular item. If it contains, we can, so we can use all of this, but we cannot, you can see, but we cannot edit it or make changes to it or add or remove from it. So that's just it. Unless we are dealing with this, unless we are removing removing it directly from this code, right? but we cannot do that outside of this. That's this line 5. And so I think this is done. So we have to David. So I cannot say, for example, add Samuel. Let's just use another name, Clinton. So you can see the red color here shows that there is an error, that I'm doing something wrong. So I can just delete. So what the only thing we can do is to just check all of the attributes of this particular variable. We cannot change it. So you can see there's a yellow underline here. Say variable is never modified. We can just use val instead. So I just wanted to quickly highlight that, so that what it means is that you can either use var or val for a mutable or an immutable list, but it is best to just use val, since val is used for immutable. uh, if you recall from our previous lessons, val is used for immutable variables, right? When we want to create a variable that will not be modified, and in this case this is a list that cannot be modified, so it actually corresponds to the val. So this makes it easier, right? So that is it. So our code is cleaner. So this is an immutable list. Let me quickly just include it there. Immutable list, right? So let's just quickly use some of the methods, the list method. So let's say the size. Let's get the size, and then we'll print this out. Yeah. So print line the size of. Oh, sorry, I think there should be a. Yeah. No, we are not calling this function, so we'll just leave it at that. So let's run this. So it's going to display the size. Now the size simply means the number of items in that particular list. Right? So you can see it's displayed here as 4. So there are 4 items in the list. Right. So let's see if we can use all other methods. M dot. Okay, so let's use the get method. So we want to get the, what's it called? Um, the index of, if you can recall from where we treated, I think it was what's it called, strings, right? That the index starts from 0, right? So the first index, or the first item, is the carries 0 index, right? So the first item is index 0, the second item is index 1. So in this case, if you look at this is the first item of this list, Eto. The second is David, third is Samuel, fourth is Dennis. So now, according to, as in the convention of programming, this first item here, the index is actually 0, because programming starts at index 0, not 1. So yeah, there's this temptation for us to assume that since it is the first index, so the index will be 1. Since it's the first item, rather, the index will be 1. But that is not correct. So the first item has an index 0, second item has an index 1, third item has an index 2. So the index is always 1 less than the actual, as in, position of the item in that list. So let's get the index of Eto, right? Returns the elements and specified index. Yes, it's not supposed to throw an error here. Okay, sorry. Okay, so let's get index 1. I don't. Okay, I think that is. Let's get the first index. I think that's how it works. Really. Okay, we have not printed it, so let's quickly print it. Print line. Let's comment this out, and then, so this is just what we have. So let me minimize this. Okay, so the first index is David. Now this is a very, I think this is not really the ideal way of getting each of those indexes. So we can actually use, I think that's why we're having this yellow underline here. Returns there. So the best way to do it is just to use the square brackets, right? Just like we did with strings. So if I want to return this first index here, this first index, I go to 0, I use 0, right? First index is 0. Okay, sorry, I didn't print it out. Print line. Let me quickly put this guy, copy it and put it here. So 0 stands for this first index, 1 stands for the second index, 2 stands for the third index. So you can see we have a 2 here. So let me just print the last one. So let's say the last one should be, since it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's the third index. So let's quickly just check how that works and what will be the outcome. So you can see we have Dennis. I think there's a way to also get it from the last. Yes, from the last. Now that's that about mutable lists, immutable lists. So let's look at mutable lists. Now, mutable lists are lists that mutable lists that can be changed. So in that case, we use a VAR, right? So it's just best to use VAL for immutable list and VAR for mutable list. Just like, if we are creating a mutable variable, we use VAR, and if we are creating an immutable, we use VAL. So the same rule applies here. VAL, VAL rather for immutable lists or immutable variables, VAR for mutable lists or mutable variables. So it's a universal principle. So we can just continue. So VAR, let's call this surnames, and then we set it to mutable list of. So that's the keyword for creating a mutable list. So then we can include, let's just call this, let's just say numbers to make it work easier. So numbers. So we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Yeah. So in this case, this is a mutable list. We can use all of the other methods, right, that we use with the mutable list. But we have an additional advantage here. We can make changes since it's a mutable list. Now to use the add method, all we simply do is to call it dot add. We can add a new item since it's a mutable list. We can add a new item to. Now the way add works is that it's either you pass in a single, what's it called, argument, or you pass in two arguments. Now if you are passing a single argument, what we are simply saying is that add this 9 to the last part of the list. So ideally the 9 will go to the last index, right? So and we print numbers, you will see that numbers will appear at the last part or the last side of the list. You can see we have 9 here at the end of the list. So now we can specify the particular index where 9 will be, right? Or the particular position of this new item that we want to add, the position that it will take on that list or in that list. So now, in order to do that, we need to pass the position first, or the index. So let's say we want 9 to be at the first, like to be the first item. That's index 0, right? So passing the index and then the element itself. So you can see Kotlin already gives us this what's it called, placeholder here that says index 0 element 9. Right? So we are going to have 9 at the beginning. So let's quickly check to see what the outcome of that is. So you can see 9 is at the beginning. All right, so we can also use the remove numbers dot remove. Now there's remove and then there's remove at. We're quickly going to look at the difference between the two. So remove, we want to remove um so we need to specify. Now if you want to get details of each method, like we have always discussed, so once you place your cursor there, you leave your cursor at that, just as in right in the middle of, or at the end of that what's it called, that method or that function. So Kotlin will give you all the details you need, right? But in this case, the reason why we are having, you can see that there's a red underline here, meaning that we need to pass it. So if you want to get details rather of that error, so you put your cursor there, it's going to give you. So no value passed for elements. So we need to specify the elements there. Now I just explained that it's not so. It's supposed to be a like a. I should have just gone straight to the how to use it, how to use the remove function, but I needed to just quickly explain. So we need to pass in a particular ml. So we want to remove five, right? So now if we print out numbers, see that five is gone. So you can see five is no longer there. Now we can use remove at. So in remove at, in remove we specify the element to be removed. In remove at, we are specifying the index, right? Not the element. So we want to say remove index. So whatever, because there are times that we are not really sure what element is in that list. Let's say we are working with a list from maybe from a what's it called, back end, right? From an API response. So we are not sure yet what the content of that list will be. What we want, but we are sure of the index that we want to remove, right? Let's say we want to take out the first index. So that's when we use this. When we are not sure of the element of the list, but we are setting the particular index that we want to take out of that list. But we use remove when we are sure of the element that we want to. So we will specify the elements. Then we use remove at when we are setting when we know the index to remove. So we specify the index. So in summary, remove is to specify. We use remove to remove a specified or a particular element, and we use remove at to remove a specified or particular index. That's just the simplest def, uh, definition I can give. Yeah. So let's remove index 6. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have removed 7. So 7 is gone. So that's how to use the add and the remove. Now let's look at a couple of other methods that are common to both the mutable and the immutable list. So we have looked at size, we have looked at get, we have looked at okay, so we can also, there's a way to, now we can change each of these. Let's say we want to change okay, the index, the first index is 0, right? The first index is 0, and in that case the element that occupies that index is 1. So let's say we want to change that, right? We want to change the first index, which is 1 here. Or let's just look at this another number, or let's put something else here. We want to change this first index to is 9 here. We want to change it to let's change it to 10. So we can say number 0. If you recall, this means that the first index, index 0 is the first item, rather the first item in the list. Index 0 corresponds to this, index 1 corresponds to the, I'm just corresponds to 2 here. So I'm just doing a recap. So we want to change index 0, which is the first item, to, let's change it to 11. So if we print line numbers, number, so if we print it, you discover that 9 is gone, and then in place of 9 we have 11. So you can see. So that's how to work with mutable lists. So let's look at a couple of other methods that are peculiar to both, or that are common to both. Okay, so we have replace. Okay, so to add, let me just quickly add this. To add, we have numbers. Let me create a new mutable list. Let me call this new numbers. And let's mutable list of, let's say, 11, 13, 35. So I want to add this list to this list, right? So they are both mutable lists, numbers and new numbers, right? So we use add all. We use the add all method. So we say numbers dot add all. So we specify where what index will they occupy this new list that I want to add to this list. What index, as in where is the position? Where are we going to put it? So let's just say we want to put it at the second position, right? So we take this entire list, new numbers, and put it here in between 9 and 2. So it's going to, so that will be, so in between 9 and 2 will be, sorry, let's go back. In between 9 and 2 will be index 1. That's the second position. So that's 1 and then new numbers. Good. So then we can print. That's how to add two lists together. Now you can't do that, well, as in with an immutable list, because that will give an error. So you're going to see that this new numbers has been added to these numbers. So okay, yes, so that's it. So we have 11. Okay, because of this guy here, let me remove this guy. I want, sorry, let me uncomment this guy and let me print it again. I want to have this original, then this added to it. Okay, you can see. So we have 9, which corresponds to this 9. Then because we said that this new numbers list should come after 9. So we have 11, 23, 35 that corresponds to this. And then we have the remaining, the other items in this numbers list. So that's how to add two. So we have added numbers, we have added new numbers to numbers. So let's see if we can use other method as well. There are quite a number of them, of methods that we can use. We can't actually look at all, but let's just look at the uh, so let's see. Yeah, we have seen get. Okay, let's see clear. I think that will be the last one. Clear is to clear a list, so we just delete it. A mutable list. We cannot clear an immutable list. So print len numbers. So we have an empty list. So clear just simply deletes everything in the list, and what we have is an empty list. That's what we have here. Yeah. So let's go to, so that's okay. We can also iterate over a list. Now to iterate means to loop through a list and carry out a particular task. So we'll go through each and every item of that list and repeat the same task. So we use the for loop. Now loops are going to be treated in a separate, in a distinct tutorial session. We're going to look at different kind of loops. We have the for loops, the where loops, the while loops, right? So the for loop and the while loops, basically. So for now, we need to state the condition here for x. Now x simply is a parameter, right? If you remember parameters, we can decide to call it y or anything we want to call it. So, but let's use x. For x in number, we want to loop through this number. So let me just delete it to make our code simple. Delete all of this. Let me delete all of this. So let's just have numbers. Yeah, I want to delete this as well. So we just have for loops. For x in numbers, that's how to iterate. So what are we going to do? We want to print out x. Print line x. For x in numbers, we are printing out all the values. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see everything is printed on the separate line because we are looping through each and every item of this list. So that shows that we can loop through a list, right? We can add a list, a mutable list. We can add two lists together, and when they are mutable, we can add or remove items from a list, add or remove based on the index, and then we can do quite a number of things with the list. So that's all there is about lists. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.